Hey guys, so it's been almost a year and a half now since Vanessa and I have moved into our Honda Element. So today we want to be talking about how we have not killed each other yet in this 35 square feet of space. So we'll start off with a few issues that we face with each other, and then after that we'll talk about how we work around it.
So one of the main issues that we find in our car situation, at least, is that I think I have a tendency to sort of hoard things and I am a little bit of a pack rat, which is really difficult in a small space like this where there isn't much space to hoard stuff. Phil and I have a very different idea of what is a necessity and what belongs in the car. So I tend to keep things and put them where I feel like it's accessible for me, and then Phil kind of disagrees with that sometimes.
But a lot of things it's not really necessary, it just she's attached to it emotionally. So
yeah,
you
Phil
know,
is ice cold, so he doesn't care about anything.
So I mean, we don't have a lot of space in this car anyway, so there's no point of keeping stuff that's not necessary.
Yeah, so anyway, that is one of our biggest issues. I mean, I think that we kind of have a bit of a balance now. I think Phil does throw things away without telling me sometimes, because the car is awfully cleaner when I come back from vacations.
Even though I'm really easygoing, for some reason I'm really anal about having a space that is clean and not cluttered.
To be fair, I am quite clean too. I just like to...
She's clean, but she just like to put things. If there's a space to put things, she will put things there. I just put it that way. So that's one of the things.
That's very true. I feel like the space is not being utilized, so I put things there. Okay, anyway. So that's one of our main issues. Another one of the issues, I think, is that you kind of get this feeling that you don't have your own personal space. It's a little harder to do your own thing. So, for example, like if I need to study late at night and I'm trying to cram for an exam or something, and I need to keep the lights on and Phil wants to go to sleep. So, you know, it's a little hard to separate that for us.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas, yeah.
It's not a big deal, though. It's just more of an inconvenience.
It can be like difficult when it's really hot outside and you kind of want to have a little more space to spread out. When you're sleeping, you can't really do that here so much. But yeah, so it's more of an inconvenience, but you kind of learn to deal with that too. Yeah. Finally, one of our big issues is just the juggling and the coordination of having a single car, and which is also our home, shared between two people. If we have things that we need to do or places we need to go, we kind of have to coordinate those things beforehand to balance it out.
It just takes a little bit more planning. Like a lot of times, you know, she might stay at school a little bit late, so I have to stay at work a little bit late, vice versa. But luckily, you know, my office and her school, it's only a mile away, so it's not a big deal. Mm-hmm. If it's something that's a little bit further, then it might be a problem.
Might be more of an issue.
Yeah.
So far, yeah, we've been pretty lucky. We can manage our distances pretty well, and we haven't had too many problems with it. But there are a few times where, you know, I'll just try to get a ride from a friend or something just because it makes things more convenient for us.
Right.
Yeah. So again, it is an issue, but it's not too difficult to work around, we'll say.
Mm-hmm.
Those are kind of our main issues, and then I guess for us,
I guess they're not really issues, just
challenges.
Yeah, challenges that after a while you get used to it and it becomes a routine and it's not really that big of a deal anymore. And then there are the few things that how we make a relationship work is, I guess the first one would be being straightforward with each other and have less expectations. I remember when we first started our first van life in Australia, we've only known each other for about 2 months before we moved into the van together. Before we moved in, we had a brief conversation about hey, listen, we still don't know each other that well yet. So I told her, things ever that you're unhappy with, we could, just tell me straight up, and we can talk about it. And then when it comes to a point where you feel like you want to leave this van life and go do something else, I would be totally fine with that. No hard feelings. And she agreed to it. She would feel the same way. From that conversation, it made things a lot easier.
It kind of set the tone of our relationship to be able to have that freedom a little more to do what we wanted, especially when we were traveling and we had both been on a traveling trip and we wanted to do the things that we wanted to do, so we wanted to keep that open. One of the other things I think that really helps us now even make things work is I think our personalities are pretty compatible. I think we're both really easygoing and pretty independent as well, and that just makes things a little bit easier when we're in a situation where compromise is something we have to do every day. So being flexible, being easygoing with managing each other's schedules and wants and stuff like that, it makes it a lot easier. And plus being independent too is like I don't really have to worry about like taking care of him and making sure he's entertained. Like he can take care of himself and things like that. So it makes it easier to do things.
And that kind of goes to our third point, that I like to spend alone time quite a bit. Being an introvert myself, I don't always like to be social. Unlike Vanessa really liked to enjoy having friends around, and she's very talkative. A lot of times she likes to go hang out with friends, and sometimes I go with her and sometimes I don't want to, and I could just kind of sit in the car and just watch my TV or do whatever, and she doesn't she doesn't mind that. So that comes to how both of us are pretty independent. I think at first when we first met, she didn't understand why I would like to spend time by myself.
Yeah, I think I understand it better, but it's definitely easier now that we're in a place where I have my own friends and places to go and things to do, so I can give Phil his time to be on his own. It was definitely harder when we were traveling and he was literally the only other person I knew there, and he wanted to be by himself. Then it was kind of hard because that meant I had to be by myself and figure out what to do. And so right now we're in a situation where it's very manageable, and like we were saying earlier about juggling the car and everything, it just works out because say if I want to go and visit a friend at her house or their house, then if Phil doesn't want to come, he just stays in the car, and he stays at home essentially and does whatever he wants to do, and so it works out pretty well actually. Yeah. I think so. That's one of the nice things that helps us make this whole thing work.
But of course it's not like that all the time. I think we compromise each other pretty well too. When I think we understand if there are certain things that are important to her and she wants me to go with her, then I will, and same goes with the other way.
Finally, our last sort of point is that earlier we said living in this small space kind of doesn't give you your own personal space, but it's actually not as bad as people may think, just because we aren't always actually together. Especially with him working full-time and me being at school, we have a lot of time apart. And then even afterwards, if we're cooking, it tends to be outside. And then in the evenings, if we're climbing or, doing something with friends, we tend not to be stuck in the car. We're like out doing things. We're not actually always just here in the car and being like feeling like we don't have no space, because we're often just outside. I'm studying in a library, or
go climbing or whatever. Go to the gym.
So as much as it may seem like we have no space, I think it just means that we utilize the space outside more than we used to, and it's really a big reason why we stopped paying rent for a house here in the Bay Area, because it just felt like we were already 90% of the time not even spending our time in the house. So like, what was the point of paying all this rent? So now it just, this whole lifestyle facilitates it. We only spend the time here really to sleep, maybe watch a movie, you know, if we want to take a nap or something, but most of all of our other time is spent outside doing things.
Right.
So
yeah, there's really no difference than a couple living in an apartment or a house. I feel like it's actually better and healthier, but I mean, we're not judging, so.
I mean, one of the biggest things maybe we didn't mention is that we try to be very honest with each other and keep lines of communication open. You know, it's really hard to just hold on to things and not talk about them when you're like literally face to face every day. So like, if things come up, we just, like Phil said, early on in our relationship, like if anything came up, we just try to talk it out like right away. So I know it's difficult sometimes, but at least, you know,
being honest and straightforward is the best way to go, guys. So that's it. We'll see you guys next week then.
Yeah.
Bye.